Hello, folks. So, prelims is less than a week away, and here we are with a new session of 360 plus high probability topics for UPSC Prelims 2026. We'll start with environment and ecology today, which is one of the most important components. It will be an amalgamation of static topics as well as current affairs topics and also the trends which we have seen from PYQs of 2018 to 2025. So it will be a very high energy session. Go through it quickly, take screenshots of the different screens, and also listen to the commentary which is being done at 1.5x or 2x to give you a quick revision and also a hold on the topics, as well as act as a balance or benchmark on your own studies. So my objective is, after going through this session or the different sessions of polity, economy, environment, you should feel a sense of fulfillment and confidence on your own preparation. Here are the different ways you can connect with us in the Telegram channel, email, WhatsApp channel, and also, of course, this YouTube channel, where I would request you to like and share this video to maximum aspirants so that the confidence is also given to them, and then subscribe to this channel. Let's start. So in environment and ecology, we'll cover topics like COP29, COP30, which has happened in Belém, Brazil this year. In fact, I had an interesting story of designing something which got UN Top 10 award leading up to this COP30, something related to water. Then we have India's climate targets and NDC framework, Ramsar Sites and wetland conservation topics, biodiversity. There are various conventions like CBD and BBNJ, tiger reserves and big cat conservation, international economic conventions, environmental laws. Of course, they are part of static, always remain in news, and hence we need to treat them as something which one should understand conceptually, as well as one should remember the important provisions of these laws. Pollution always remains one of the important topics where one or two questions every year come in different forms. Then we have climate sciences, IPCC, and extreme events. Green energy transition, one of the hot topics which always figures out in some form or the other in the prelims. We have ecosystems, forests, mangroves, and marine. And of course, there is species conservation and flagship species and new species. Proceeding, let's start with COP29, which is Baku Climate Finance Deal. It is a part of current affairs, and also you will see that there are many continued topics right from Paris Agreement of 2016, which always figure in different COPs which have happened later to that. So, for example, COP29 was held in Baku, Azerbaijan in November 2024. It hosted 196 parties, 1,000 plus observers, and the theme was enhancing ambition, enabling action. Azerbaijan presidency was controversial because it was an oil-producing state which was hosting a climate summit. But one should remember the theme, which is enhancing ambition and enabling action. So not only ambition, but also action is something which we are proceeding towards as the UN body. There was something called NCQG, which is New Collective Quantified Goal on Climate Finance. About $300 per year by 2035 from developed to developing nations was taken as a goal. You would remember that there have been many such commitments in the past COPs too. One of the commitments were giving $100 billion per annum by the developed countries to developing countries. And this goalpost has been shifting. So now it has shifted to $300 billion per year by 2035. So cumulatively by 2035, the developed nations should pass on about $300 billion for the developing nations to meet their climate goals. And it is an expanded goal with private sector also bringing about $1.3 trillion to the table. So NCQG is a combination of government as well as private goals, and both have their own dollar value targets. India plus G77 demanded that $1.3 trillion should be the base floor. That is, this much amount should be invested by the private sector, but it was rejected as the NCQG goal. Now, India's objective is that $300 billion is paltry and inadequate, of course. So if you actually want to make a dent and be prepared for the climate objectives, then $300 billion for the entire developing and least developed world is actually paltry and inadequate given the needs, current day needs. And there was a joint-minded statement by like-minded developing countries, which is LMDC. India, China, Bolivia, Iran, etc. came together and it walked out of the contact group. Final text was adopted over the objections led by this LMDC. So you see in international relations, two countries are not enemies in every front. So for example, when it comes to climate conversations, India and China mostly take positions together because we are in the phase of going from a developing country to a developed nation, and climate objectives is one of the things which can hamper your development goals. Again, Article 6 was discussed. Article 6 was also in one of the PYQs, which is related to carbon markets. Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Article 6.2, which is bilateral carbon credit trading, and 6.4, centralized UN carbon market, both were operationalized at Baku. Now, these articles have actually figured out as PYQs in 2025 and also in the previous years. So you should understand in Paris Agreement, which are the important articles. You should go through it and at least have an idea about the broad topics which those articles talk about and how the subsequent COPs are leading for the operationalization of those articles. Now, India has signed MOCs with Japan, Singapore, and UAE regarding Article 6.2 trades, which is related to bilateral carbon trading. Loss and Damage Fund was also operationalized at COP28 Dubai. So COP28 Dubai operationalized the Loss and Damage Fund, which was hosted by World Bank initially and now Bridgetown Foundation. COP29 saw first pledges for this Loss and Damage Fund, which was amounting to about $730 million. India did not contribute anything, but it was primarily funded by EU and Japan. So loss and damage related to climate-related activities for populations across the world. Nationally determined contributions 3.0 were submitted due by February 2025. India submitted its updated NDC 2022. 50% of non-fossil fuel electricity capacity generation by 2030, and we have achieved this goal 5 years earlier. So India has always been at the forefront of achieving its NDC goals. In fact, this goal we have achieved 5 years earlier. 45% emission intensity reduction versus 2005. That is one of the goals. Net zero we have committed by 2070. And next NDC submission is required by February 2025 ahead of the COP30. Now let's go to COP30, which is held in Belém, Brazil, at the heart of the Amazon rainforests. So you can see the location. Belém is in para-state of Brazilian Amazon. The first implementation COP. So we saw that Baku was an action COP in which some of the implementation goal and action goals were taken. Now Belém, the most of the focus was on implementation of the targets or goals which were taken by the countries. Global stocktake showed that world is 10 years behind Paris targets, and emissions must peak before 2025 per IPCC to stay at 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we are already 10 years behind Paris targets, and now it's the time for rapid action. Tropical Forest Forever Facility, TFFF, that is one of the important terms which was discussed and adopted in Belém, Brazil, Brazil's flagship initiative. So TFFF, Tropical Forest Forever Facility, was Brazil's flagship initiative as the host of COP30. A $50 billion fund was given for forest-rich nations to protect forests. So for example, countries like Brazil, India, who are in the developing phase and who need land for their development, if they are not to cut down their forests or not to do deforestation, how will they get that land? And if they're not getting that land, how will they be compensated for the opportunity cost which they're losing out on not using their own land? And hence this TFFF was created, and this $50 billion fund was asked by the forest-rich nations. Amazon, Congo Basin, and Southeast Asian forests are the major regions where we have intense, dense tropical forests. So these are the three regions. Look them up in the map. Look for the countries which encompass Amazon rainforest, Congo Basin forest, and Southeast Asian forest, which includes India, Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia. And then Lula government hosted AMOFAC, which is Amazon Summit in 2023, as a precursor to gain all of the countries coming together for TFFF and $50 billion fund. Now, NDC 3.0, we saw that it originated in the Baku deal of COP29. Countries submitted their new NDCs. India's new NDC included specific hydrogen, nuclear, and biogas targets. So these are the three key important terms which India have included in the new NDCs, apart from the ones which we discussed in the previous slide. Hydrogen, nuclear, and biogas targets have been taken by India. Coal phase down versus coal phase out language battle happened. So India and China insisted on phase down. So basically, again, as developing nations, we have came together. India and China came together to have appropriate language which fulfills our national goals, keeping in balance the climate goals. And coal phase out was not taken up. In fact, phase down was something which India and China came together upon. and also targets for hydrogen, nuclear, and biogas. Now, global carbon budget for 2025 is the remaining budget for 1.5 degrees Celsius is only 150 gigatons of CO2. And roughly 3.8 years are only left for the current emissions rate of 37.4 gigatons per year. So basically, as a world, we emit about 37.4 gigatons of carbon dioxide every year. And the budget which is left to keep our temperature, the world temperature, only at 1.5 degrees Celsius, according to the Paris climate goals, is 150 gigatons of CO2. So we only have 3.8 years of budget left with us. So COP30 context is of one of high urgency. We need to take action now. We will surely surpass the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, but to not make it worse, we need to take urgent actions now. India withdrew from COP33 host bid, citing domestic priorities. India had expressed interest of hosting the COP33 in 2028. It is likely to go to Saudi Arabia or any Gulf nation. And India's BRICS chair 2026 prioritizes climate in the parallel track. So India, in its BRICS presidency, will prioritize the climate track. COP30 outcomes, Belém Declaration on Forests came up, TFFF came up. Now we understand that why major focus on forests, because Brazil is hosting it, which is the largest concentration of Amazon rainforests. TFFF was capitalized already at $20 billion, but it is short of the $50 billion goal which was taken. Now, Article 6.4 of the Paris Climate Accords, which we saw in the last slide, carbon market was opened for the first time for bilateral trades. And finance architecture reform has also happened, MDB reform to increase climate lending. So there are multinational development banks which have to reform to increase their climate lending. These are the goals or outcomes which are taken up in COP30. Focused upon forest, short of the $50 billion goal, but $20 billion raised for TFFF. And then the carbon trading and bilateral carbon credit mechanisms of the Paris Agreement of Article 6, 6.2 and 6.4, they were taken up. And also MDB reforms for increasing climate lending. Moving forward, what are India's climate targets in the NDC framework? Well, you can see that what is India's installed electricity today. It is capacity in 2025. Most of it is coal. So about of the all, so let's say if we produce about 260 to 270 gigawatts of energy, out of that, 214 gigawatts is produced by coal or coal-related power plants. Then we have solar as the second most important, which is 89 to 90 gigawatts. Then hydro and wind are pretty similar with 47 or 48 gigawatts each. Then we have other renewable sources like biogas. Nuclear is 7.5 gigawatts. So the focus of the government is to increase the non-fossil fuel and also the renewable share of our energy installed capacity, which means working a lot in nuclear as well as hydro, wind, and solar sectors, along with biogas and hydrogen. So India's 2022 NDC targets, let's revise them. It was reducing emissions intensity of GDP by 45% by 2030 versus 2005. In 2005, it was 30 to 35% of the entire GDP. Then we have, so basically, we have told that by 2030, we'll reduce our emissions intensity as a portion of GDP by 45%, what we used to do in 2005, which means that most of our energy would now come from cleaner sources. Now, achieving 50% cumulative electrical power from non-fossil fuels. And what are non-fossil fuels? Hydro, wind, solar, nuclear, and other renewable energy sources. Then create additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 gigatons CO2 equivalent through forest by 2030. So it combines with our goal of increasing forestation in our country, where we have set a national forest policy goal of 33% of the entire area of the country. And if we try to achieve that, we'll additionally create 2.5 to 3 gigatons of CO2 sink. Now, we have already achieved 50% non-fossil fuel installed capacity 6 years ahead or 5 years ahead of the 2030 target. Currently, non-fossil fuel installed capacity was 47.4% in December 2024. It crossed by 50% in February 2025. Renewable energy installed capacity is 175 gigawatts till now. Target was 175 gigawatts by 2022. It was delayed by about an year, but we have reached. So out of the 50% of non-fossil fuel, renewables is 175 gigawatt, which we have already achieved in 2023. Net zero target was taken by India or committed till 2070 at the Glasgow COP26, which was held in 2021. So net zero of 2070 was taken as a target in COP26. The latest net zero date among major economies are China has taken a goal for 2060, EU and USA have taken it for 2050, and India argues for historical responsibility as well as less per capita emissions. So this was also a thing of PYQ. One of the options was given that India has emissions of zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.4. No, it's about 1.9 to 2, but it is much less than world average, which is about 3 to 4, and then USA, which is about per capita emissions of 14.2. So we always argue that our goals should be later. One, because we are developing, and how do we prove that through data? One is, of course, historical responsibility, and other is our per capita emissions are much lesser than world average, leave alone the developed countries like USA. Then there is also carbon border adjustment mechanism with by the EU, CBAM by EU. So it put tariffs on carbon intensive imports to EU from 2026. So sectors like steel, cement, aluminium, fertilizers, hydrogen, electricity, they both were at risk because of these climate related targets or the CBAM targets, carbon border adjusted mechanism targets, which was held by EU. So India's steel and aluminium exports to EU are worth $8 billion. So they are at risk of having more tariffs on them, which was addressed to some extent in the EU FTA, which was signed this year by the PM and the EU, which is called the mother of all deals, by the way. Read about the EU India FTA and also the provisions which happened in that FTA. That becomes very important as related to the current affairs, which is both related to the climate and environment aspect, trade aspect, economy aspect, and human capital aspect. So you should go through the terms which were signed in the India EU FTA. Then there is National Action Plan for Climate Change, which has 8 specific missions related to solar, enhanced energy capacity efficiency, sustainable habitat, water, Himalayan ecosystem, green India, sustainable agriculture, and strategic knowledge for climate. So these are the 8 missions which you should read and know as a part of your static part. In fact, you should also know what are the different articles as well as targets taken under all of these 8 missions, major targets. So 3-4 line summary, you should know about all of these 8 missions. And these are still operational and updated consistently. Then India took the goal of Panchamrit during Glasgow COP26 of 2021, where India showed 5-pronged climate strategy. Hence, it is named Panchamrit. One is 500 gigawatt non-fossil fuel by 2030. 50% of that non-fossil fuel should be renewable energy share. 1 billion ton emission reduction should happen, and 45% emission reduction intensity. One of the major goals was net zero by 2070. So what are the Panchamrit or 5-pronged energy climate strategy goals taken by India in climate 2021 for this decade? One is, of course, 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel energy, 50% renewable energy share, 1 billion ton emission reduction, 45% emission intensity reduction. Both are two different things. One is absolute, other is intensity reduction. And the third one is net zero by 2070. That is, we would not emit carbon. In fact, the total carbon absorption as well as carbon emission would amount to 0 by 2070. Moving forward, Ramsar Sites and wetland conservation. Ramsar Site Convention was signed in 1971 in the Ramsar city of Iran. It was formally the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, especially as waterfowl habitat. So Ramsar Convention formally is called this. And India was acceded in 1982. India acceded to this convention in 1982. 172 contracting parties have signed this convention till now. COP15, Victoria Falls of Zimbabwe was also included in Ramsar Convention. Victoria Falls is very famous. It is one of the highest waterfalls in the world. And in COP15, it was included in the convention. Now, India's Ramsar sites have increased a lot. In fact, I remember in 2019 or 20, when I was giving my first prelims, the number was around 38 to 40, but now it has increased to 97. And hence it becomes very important that all the new sites which have been added, you should know their location on the map, as well as the important species, the waterfowl species, as well as humans, the fauna species which live around these sites, and why they have been included in India's Ramsar status. So geography is important, flora and fauna around it is important, and the reason of why it was included in the Ramsar site is important. And India is highest in Asia and third globally in terms of Ramsar sites. Tamil Nadu leads with 18 Ramsar sites. And largest Ramsar site is Sundarbans in West Bengal, which has about 4.23 lakh hectares in area. Smallest is Renuka Waterlands in Himachal Pradesh, only 20 hectares. Key sites are Chilika, which was our first Ramsar site in 1981, then Loktak Lake, we read about it. It is in Maripur. Also, there are some special features of Loktak Lake, Fumudis, and then there is a very special deer species. Name that species. You should know about it. Then Vular Lake in Jammu and Kashmir, Koleru Lake, and Sambar Lake. So you should know about these important lakes. Where are they situated? Why are they famous? Which are the important species which are around them? UPSC has consistently asked questions about these. And of course, you should know about in the last 2-3 years, which were the new sites added, where they have been added. You know about the largest Ramsar site as well as the smallest one now, and which state leads it. 2025 editions are Khichen in Menar, Rajasthan, Sakarkotai in Thetangal, Tamil Nadu, then Khichiopalri in Sikkim, Udhwa Lake in Jharkhand, Gokul Jalashay, Udaipur Jheel, and Gogabeel in Bihar. Then we have Silisade in Rajasthan and Kopra Jalashay in Chhattisgarh. So these are the new additions which have happened. Go through them in the map. Look at their area. Where are they located? Are they located inside a national park or a wildlife sanctuary? And are there specific species of migratory birds or fowls which visit them continuously? Then Wetland City Accreditation, WCA. It is a volunteer 6-year accreditation. So we generally don't read about WCA accreditation, but it becomes very important because more and more sites are being included in India's Ramsar status, which are very near to cities also. And what are the criteria for WCA? Wetlands are integral to our urban life and hence sustainable management. India's first WCA cities are Udaipur and Rajasthan. So you have seen that Udaipur Jheel in Bihar has been included. In Rajasthan, some Khichen Jheel as well as Silisade Jheel has been included. In fact, there is a very famous lake Pichola in Udaipur. I don't know, I don't remember whether it comes under the Ramsar status or not. But WCA becomes very important for lake cities, for example, Udaipur and Indore and Madhya Pradesh. So they were included in COP15 in 2025, and this accreditation is for 6 years. So go through WCA accreditation. We have Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of 2017, which were amended in 2022. So there are state wetland authorities which are mandated through these rules. No reclamation or no encroachment should happen of these wetlands, and no solid waste dumping should also happen. National Wetland Conservation Program was also given under MOEFCC, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Amrit Dharohar scheme was launched in 2023 for Ramsar sites. So these are very important Indian-made rules, regulations related to wetlands. What is that? One is, of course, Wetland Conservation Management Rules 2017, amended in 2022. State wetland authorities have to be made under these rules. No reclamation, encroachment, or solid waste dumping can happen. NWCP was made under MOFCC. Look at who heads the NWCP and who are the members of NWCP, what are its goals. Then there is a scheme called Amrit Dharohar scheme for Ramsar sites, specifically launched in 2023. There is a wise use principles when it comes to wetlands. Sustainable utilization should be there for maintaining the ecological character. Nine Ramsar criteria are for designation for wise use principles. At least one is needed for this. It is rare and representative. Biodiversity should be there along those wetlands. 20,000 water birds should visit there, or 1% of the species population. So either 20,000 water birds should visit that site, or 1% of that species population should visit that site. And that represents fish also. So what are the criteria for wise use principles? UPSC can ask this. There are 9 Ramsar criteria, and you need to fulfill any one of them to come under this principle. And some major ones or major criteria are, it should be rare and representative species should come to those wetland sites. Biodiversity should, like the lake itself should have a lot of biodiversity. 20,000 water birds should be present there at any season, or 1% of the species population of the birds or fish should survive due to that lake. So go through the wise use principles and what are the 9 specific Ramsar criteria for that. Then we have biodiversity conventions, which is conventions on biological diversity, and BBNJ, which is high seas treaty or biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. So CBD was signed in 1992. It had 3 objectives: conservation, sustainable use, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits from genetic resources. This is very important. The 3 objectives, which we read as part of our static, but one should also remember. It helps you solve or eliminate different options. So in CBD, we have conservation, sustainable use, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits from genetic resources. There are 196 parties of CBD. USA has not ratified it. So this you should keep in mind, because it includes fair and equitable sharing of benefits from genetic resources. And US has some of the largest seed companies as well as companies which work for genetic modification of crops, etc. Hence, it has not signed it. India ratified it in 1994. We are always the good guys in the international community. Then it has its secretariat in Montreal, Canada. As a part of this, Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was decided in December 2022 and COP15 of CBD. There was a target which was taken as 30 into 30 target. 30% of the land and oceans should be protected by 2030 as in under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Why Montreal? Because Montreal has a secretariat of CBD. So there were 23 targets which were taken in total for the Kunming-Montreal GBD, GMF. Global Biodiversity Framework. Target 3, which is 30 into 30, that is 30% of land and oceans protected by 2030. Target 2 is restoration of different water bodies as well as lands and protection of biodiversity. And target 19 is $200 billion per year should be given for biodiversity finance. So you see there is a pattern that on all the frameworks or conventions which have been signed, there have been some monetary commitments, but those monetary commitments have been very lofty in terms of numbers, but they have not been met by the developed nations. So after that, we also have Nagoya Protocol of 2010, where access and benefit sharing (ABS) was operationalized. So it operationalized the Convention of Biodiversity, Article 15, where National Biodiversity Authority was made in 2002 for regulating in India. Biodiversity Act was also made in 2002. Plus, Biodiversity Amendment Act came in 2023. It only exempts Ayush practitioners from the ABS compliance, which is access and benefit sharing compliance. So essentially, Nagoya Protocol operationalized the CBD Article 15, which is very important. It led to the formation of a National Biodiversity Authority, which India already had through the Diversity Act of 2002, and then India also amended it in 2023. The Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Treaty of 2023, which is also called High Seas Treaty, the first international treaty for marine biodiversity beyond 2,200 nautical miles of EEZ, which is exclusive economic zone. So this is very important. And now we have a treaty which is High Seas Treaty. It is for the protection of international treaty for marine biodiversity beyond our exclusive economic zone. So one should know what is called the territory of a nation, which is about 20 nautical miles from its territorial jurisdiction. And apart from that, 200 nautical miles from your territorial jurisdiction, you have EEZ, in which the country has exclusive economic rights or exclusive economic zone, it is called. So now this treaty is for protecting marine life even beyond this 200 nautical miles of EEZ. It has 3 pillars: marine protected areas in high seas, EBSA, ecologically and biologically sensitive areas, ecologically and biodiversity sensitive areas, and then environmental impact assessment and benefit sharing of marine genetic resources. You see a theme. Whenever we talk about biodiversity, genetic protection, genetic resource sharing, fair and equitable sharing of benefits, these become very important themes when you talk about biodiversity. And even in BBNJ, of the 3 pillars, marine protection in high seas is very important. Then we have EBSA, which is ecologically and biologically sensitive areas which we have to protect. There is EIA mechanism, which we already have through various acts in our country, and benefit sharing of marine genetic resources. Then there is IPBES, which is Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. It was made in 2012. So it is IPCC for biodiversity. IPCC is International Panel for Climate Change, which was made for UNFCCC agreements and COPs. So IPBES is equivalent in terms of biodiversity and ecosystem services. It was built in or made in 2012. Global assessment happened in 2019. 1 million species are facing extinction, which was given in the report of IPBES. There is global land degradation assessment as well as Secretariat of IPBES in Bonn, Germany. So one should remember IPBES, it was formed, it is equivalent to IPCC of UNFCCC. IPBES is equivalent for UNCBD. It does different global assessments. One of its global assessment in 2019 told that 1 million species faced extinction today, and global land degradation assessment is also done by it, and its secretariat is in Bonn, Germany. India's biodiversity statistics, 8% of the global biodiversity is in 2% of world's land. So we are extremely biodiversity rich nation. We just have 2.4% of world's entire land mass, but we hold 8% of global biodiversity. There are four biodiversity hotspots, which is a part of static. One is Western Ghats, then we have Eastern Himalayas, Indo-Burma, and Sundaland. Sundaland is Andaman and Nicobar Islands. We have 91,000 plus animal species, 45,500 plant species, and about 26% land is under forest, or you can see tree plus forest. In fact, the FSI report, which comes out regularly, you should go through it and remember the exact percentages, that what is the exact percentage of forest in India, which states lead it, which states have the highest growth, which state showed deterioration, etc. You should go through that report. And the most recent FSI report, in fact, the tiger conservation report, you should also go through it. Now coming on to tiger reserves and big cat conservation, Project Tiger started in 1973. 50 years have happened till 2023. India now has 58 tiger reserves. Very important. In fact, Madhav Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh became the 58th one in 2025. 9 tiger range states are there, which have 75% of the world's wild tigers. And tiger population assessment of 2022, 3682 tigers were counted in India, which is 75% of the entire tiger population of the world. So our 9 tiger range states have 75% of the entire world tiger population, which is 3682 wild tigers. And India has 58 tiger reserves. Madhav Tiger Reserve was the newest one in MP. Now, Madhav Tiger Reserve in Shivpuri, MP became the 58 Tiger Reserve. Tiger reintroduction from Bandhavgarh happened here. So it did not have naturally tigers, but from Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, some tigers were reintroduced here. MP has the most reserves now: Bandhavgarh, Kana, Pench, Satpura, Bori Satpura, Sanjay Dubri National Park, Panna, Bhopal Tiger Reserve, and now Madhav Tiger Reserve. So Madhya Pradesh has the highest number of tiger reserves. International Big Cat Alliance, IBCA, happened in April 2023. It launched Mysuru on Project Tiger in 50th anniversary. It was launched in Mysuru. India as a permanent host. It covers 7 big cats. So why is India a permanent host of IBCA? Because India hosts 7 of the big cats of the world. It hosts tiger. Lion is present in Gir National Park in Gujarat. Then we have leopards everywhere around the country. We also have very rare snow leopard in our Leh Ladakh region. Then we have cheetah, which was reintroduced. Where it was reintroduced, you should know about it. Kuno Palpur or Madhya Pradesh, the wildlife sanctuary, where it was reintroduced. Then we don't have puma or jaguar. Puma or jaguar, they are mostly found in North America. So puma is found in North America and jaguar is found in the Amazon rainforest of South America. But we have tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, and cheetah, which were reintroduced. There are 96 range countries which are eligible for the IBCA Alliance. Then Project Cheetah happened in Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. It received 20 Namibian cheetahs and 12 South African cheetahs. Mortality rate concerns, 13 deaths happened by 2024, and Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary in MP was being readied for the second site. Cheetah, so Indian cheetah or Asiatic cheetah was found in India. In fact, it is all currently found in Iran. So Asiatic cheetah is now currently found in Iran, but India did not have it because of mass hunting. But it was present before our independence, last seen in 1947 in our grasslands. Now, one good news which happened was the cheetahs which were introduced in our country, the African cheetahs, they gave birth to various pups. So now we have different cubs taking birth in India. Hope they flourish more. Then we have Project Snow Leopard in 2009, which has taken habitat-based approach. So 4 states, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Sikkim, which are the habitats for snow leopard. We have launched Project Snow Leopard there in 2009, plus 1 union territory. So you should name what is that union territory now. There is 500 to 600 wild snow leopard population in India, and in China there is about 2,000 to 2,500. In fact, in Darjeeling, when you'll go there, it has a specific snow leopard breeding center along with a red panda breeding center. But in wild, we find it in Leh Ladakh region mostly, and also some parts of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Sikkim. The snow leopard comes in Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act as well as CITES Appendix 1. It is also called the ghost of the mountains. Somewhere it is called the king of the mountains. It is a revered being or a revered animal when you go to these mountainous parts, and extremely rare to sight or catch, very secluded. We have IUCN threat categories which you have to memorize. So it is a pattern which has come in different PYQs. So you should know which are the IUCN threat categories, which are the major animals across the world which come under these threat categories, and also specifically in India. So which are these categories? Extinct and wild, EW. Then we have critically endangered. You should definitely know all the critically endangered species across mammals, birds, plants in India. Then you should have endangered. You should also know about endangered and vulnerable species, especially those which have been in use. Near threat and least concern. So you should know about Great Indian Bustard, which is critically endangered and very few population is left now. Asiatic land is endangered. Indian rhino is vulnerable. India Project Snow Leopard. Snow leopard is, I think, critically endangered. You should know about all these important animals. Indian tiger, whether it is critically endangered or endangered. So go through the list which is given by the Indian government, and also go through the Wildlife Protection Act. Many amendments were made there and questions have been asked continuously in PYQs of different exams. Go through CITES appendices and what changes have been made there. Go through also EPA, Environmental Protection Act. Then you have the Forest Acts, different Forest Acts right from 1927 to 1980. You should remember the major provisions of all these acts. Going forward, we have international environment conventions. One is Basel Convention of 1989, which deals with hazardous waste. It controls the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Basel ban amendment happened in 2019, which entered into force from 2019 also. It bans the export of hazardous waste from OECD to non-OECD countries. So it's very important. Basel ban amendment in 2019 came for banning the export of hazardous materials from OECD countries, which are mostly developed countries, to non-OECD countries, which are mostly developing or least developed countries. And plastic waste is also now added to the Annex 2 in 2021. Now, what is the full form of PIC? That I will not tell. This is a part of static which you should know. Go through it and revise it. So one should remember Basel Convention is regarding hazardous waste and stopping the transport or transboundary movement of hazardous waste from developed countries to developing nations. Stockholm Convention of 2001, which is related to POPs, which is persisting organic pollutants. 12 dirty dozens POPs are called initially. Now there are 30 plus POPs. So initially in Stockholm Convention, there were 12 dirty dozen POPs. Now we have 30 plus POPs. India ratified this convention in 2006. PFAS is under review for POPs listing. PFAS is a chemical. You should read about it. Hexachlorobenzene, PCBs, and DDT, which is used for malaria prevention. These are also covered. So what is important is, one, you should know what Stockholm Convention is, persistent organic pollutants. Second, you should know what are the dirty dozen, and now what are the 30 different POPs which are included. Just go through the name of these chemicals so that when options come, you should know, or your mind should take you through, okay, have I heard about this name or not? You should also go through the specific chemicals which India has listed. They become very important with related to exam or questions which can come in exams. So PFAS, hexachlorobenzene, PCBs, and DDT, they have been asked in different PYQs. Then you have the Rotterdam Convention of 1998. Okay, the PIC is given here as an answer. It is prior informed consent. So if anybody wants to send some waste or any convention for hazardous chemicals, etc., it should have the prior informed consent of the country where they are being moved. So before export of 54 hazardous chemicals and 35 pesticides, exporting country must get consent of the country which is importing it. India ratified this convention in 2005. It does not ban chemicals, but it requires their consent for being exported. So in Rotterdam Convention and also in Basel Convention, you see that it is not completely banned, but okay, leaving the Basel Convention ban amendment of 2019, which bans the hazardous waste to be exported. In Rotterdam, the hazardous chemicals and pesticides are not completely banned, but taking PIC, you can export those chemicals because those chemicals might be required for different industrial purposes. Then we have the Minamata Convention of 2013, which regulates mercury. It controls mercury across its life cycle from mining, trade, products, processes, emissions, releases, storage, and disposal. So you learn two very important things here. One is, of course, Minamata Protocol or Convention for mercury. What does a life cycle of a mineral look like? That we learn here, which is mining, then trade, products coming out of it, processes for the mining as well as trading. Then you have emissions from different minerals. Releases. So emissions and releases are two different things. Emissions happen in atmosphere. Releases can happen on land or in water. Then how to do storage and disposal of these critical elements or minerals. It is named after Minamata disease, which happened in Japan in 1950s, which happened due to organic mercury poisoning via fish. India ratified this convention in 2018. So you would see that there is some gap between when these conventions were actually adopted and when India ratified it. Then there is Montreal Protocol of 1987. We have Kigali Amendment also of 2016. Why? It is related to ozone layer recovery. So Montreal was the most successful multilateral agreement which helped in recovering ozone layer. And Kigali Amendment came in 2016, but in force in 2019, it added HFCs, which were potential greenhouse gases used in cooling of our refrigerators, ACs, etc., to phase down the schedule. India ratified the Kigali Amendment in 2021, and it phased down HFCs by 85% by 2047. So we have taken a target that we'll phase down our hydrofluorocarbons. HFCs stand for hydrofluorocarbons by 85% by 2047, according to the Kigali Amendment. And Montreal Protocol and Kigali Amendment has been one of the most successful multilateral arrangements which have brought the desired outcome of helping the ozone layer recovering. Then we also have the CITES Protocol, which is 1963. It came into force by 1975. Appendix 1 is trade prohibited species. So there are about 1,000 species. So go through the species which are related to India in the CITES Protocol, and also our Wildlife Protection Act, different schedules. Appendix 2 allows for regulated trade of different species. There are about 35,000 species here. And then Appendix 3, which ensures national protection and monitoring. For example, India is a party to the CITES. India's concerns related to the different species included in CITES conventions are ivory trade, rosewood, rhino horn, tokegekko, and sandalwood trade. So these are the major concerns which India has, and these species have been included in our CITES conventions or different appendices. Appendix 1, trade is prohibited. Appendix 2, some regulated trade can happen. And Appendix 3, national protection and monitoring of these species should happen. Important species related to India: ivory trade, rosewood, rhino horn, and tokegekko. Moving forward, we have environmental laws, EIA, EPA, and recent acts. So Environment Protection Act, EP of 1986, it was an umbrella legislation which empowered center to take all measures to protect and improve environment. Rule 5 prohibits or restricts industries in eco-sensitive zones, and it delegated legislation, EIA notification 2006, issued under it. What does delegated legislation mean? It means that local bodies as well as state bodies can make laws towards it, or they can come out with notifications and rules to regulate the EPA Act. Important, you should know about different rules there. Rule 5 is for prohibition and restriction of industries, and EIA notification also came out due to the EPA Act. EIA notification of 2006, there are 4-stage process for environmental impact assessment. What are those? First is screening. Category A and B determination should happen. Then there is scoping of terms of reference. Then there is public consultation, which is mandatory for category A environmental lands, and some are required for category B. It is exempted for defense and linear projects in forest areas like making of highways, etc. So and then there is appraisal committee, which is environment impact clearance committee for environment clearance. Very important concepts. For example, EIA notification of 2006, it came out due to the EPA Act of 1986. It regulates, it has 4 different stages for handling of any public sector or private project. What are those 4 stages? First, it has to be screened. The category has to be determined. If it is category A, it has higher regulation. Category B has lesser regulation. Then scoping of terms of reference should be defined there. Public consultation is mandatory for category A, and which is some for category B should happen. While there are some exemptions also for strategic purposes, defense, and linear projects like highways in forest areas. And appraisal is done by EAC committee, which gives environment clearance. Supreme Court struck down the retrospective environment clearances in May 2025. MOFCC 2017 notification allowed for post facto environmental clearances for violations was unconstitutional. So it violated precautionary principle, polluter pays principles. Article 21, it also violated. Projects with violations cannot regularize, must apply fresh or close. So basically what Supreme Court told was that if there is any project which has violated the environmental clearance principles, it should not be regularized. It must apply for fresh clearances from the government, or the project should be closed. Basically, Supreme Court took the decision of protecting the environment and not allowing the executive overrun of post facto violations. And what are the different constitutional things or arguments which were made? It violated the precautionary principle, polluter pays principle, as well as Article 21, which is right to life and liberty. Then we have the district level EIA authority, which was abolished in 2020. The powers were merged back to state level EIA authority. We also have NGT National Green Tribunal, which was a statutory body, which is a statutory body made through the NGT Act of 2010. It has jurisdiction over environmental laws listed in Schedule 1, which is it has jurisdiction over EPA, Water Act of 1974, Air Act of 1981, Forest Act of 1980, and Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Biological Diversity Act of 2002. It also has jurisdiction over coastal regulation zones. So NGT is a very important body. You should remember that it is a statutory body under NGT Act of 2010, and it has jurisdiction over which environmental laws? So Water and Air 74, 81, Forest Act of 1980, very important, EPA of 1986, WPA, Wildlife Protection Act, Biodiversity Act, as well as Coastal Regulation Zones. You should remember these acts which come under NGTs. Then Forest Conservation Amendment Act came in 2023, which defined the forest based on 1980 survey records. It excludes many community forests from protection. It allows forest land diversion for national security, strategic linear projects, and ecotourism without FC Act permission, which is Forest Conservation Act permission. It was opposed by tribes and ecologists. Why? Because basically through this amendment, you are opening up the forest for more use. Basically, you can define projects under these national security, strategic linear projects, etc., and you can divert those forests. And it has also excluded many community forests from exclusive protection under the definition of forest of FC Act of 1980. The Wildlife Protection Act, Amendment Act of 2022. So it has changed the 6 schedules, and now there are only 4 schedules in this act. Schedule 1 has the highest protection. Like in sites, we also saw that Appendix 1 had the highest protection. It is sites aligned now. Invasive species regulations have happened. Schedule 5, which was vermin in the previous act, now it has modified. No blanket listing of vermin species has happened. Center can notify vermin species separately, and animal transfers between zoos is also simplified. So what are the changes which has happened through the Wildlife Protection Amendment Act of 2022? There are now 4 schedules instead of 6. Schedule 1 has the highest protection, which is sites aligned. Invasive species have been regulated. Vermin species have been modified. There is no blanket listing under the Schedule 5 previously. Now the center can notify the vermin species. And animal transfers between zoos have been simplified. Coming on to the very important topic of pollution, which is air, water, and plastic regulation. We have NCAP, National Clean Air Program of 2019. It targets 40% of PM10 and PM2.5 reduction by 2025-2026 versus the 2017-18 baseline. So in NCAP, 2-3 things become very important. One, what is the target? So target is 40% reduction of what? PM10 and PM2.5, which are particulate matter. On which benchmark? So the benchmark is 2017 and 18. And till when? By 2025 and 2026. And this baseline should happen in 131 non-attainment cities where the PM10 and PM2.5 matter is very high. CPCB, which is Central Pollution Control Board, is the nodal authority. It is linked with 15 Finance Commission grants, 4,400 crore for city action plans and mandatory. So basically, if you want this 4,400 crore of grants, which was given in the 15th Finance Commission, the cities, the 131 non-attainment cities should achieve the target of 40% reduction of PM10 and PM2.5 on the 2017-18 baseline till 25-26. GRAP, which is Graded Response Action Plan for Delhi NCR only, and it is administered by Commission for Air Quality Management in NCR and adjoining areas, which is called CAQM. It is a statutory body under the CAQM Act of 2021. It has 4 stages based on AQI. If the stage 1, 201 to 300, 2, 301 to 400, 401 to 450, and then 450 plus. Stage 4 bans constructions and C4W trucks. So basically, Graded Response Action Plan is when the AQI in the Delhi NCR region goes to worse, which is hazardous for human beings to live in, what are the different graded measures like banning construction, having even odd vehicular ban, also various prohibitions on industrial activity, on factories, etc., should come into force for lowering the AQI. And this is taken care of by CAQM, which is a statutory body. We also have the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974, NGT rules it. SPCBs and CPCBs both are responsible for it. It was amended in 2024 to decriminalize minor violations. So what do you mean by decriminalization? That is jail is removed under these provisions and compounding fees are added. WHO water standards, E. coli should be zero for drinking water in India. Indian standards are definitely weaker, and we have to work a lot to meet the goals of WHO quality standards. And this is being enabled by our Water Prevention and Control Pollution Act of 1974. Nodal agencies will be SPCBs and CPCB. Plastic waste management rules of 2016, it was amended in 2022 and then again in 2026. Single-use plastic ban happened from July 2022. Cups, plates, straws, carry bags, etc., which had less than 120 microns. So this number is very important for single-use plastic. Then there is an EPR portal on CPCB website which helps in managing these rules. 2026 amendment added flexibility for packaging materials. So basically, the goal is to move towards more sustainable methods of packaging. PFAS are called forever chemicals because they remain in our environment for a long time and do not degrade. So fluoroalkyl substances, PFAS is basically perfluoro or polyfluoroalkyl substances. There are 14,000 plus types of these chemicals. CF, the carbon and fluorine bond are the strongest in organic chemistry, and hence PFAS are called forever chemicals because this bond doesn't break, and hence these molecules do not degrade. It makes them non-degradable. It's found in non-stick cookware, rainware, food packaging, firefighting foam, etc. So all of these things, PFAS is found, and PFAS is also regulated. You have seen in the different hazardous materials or conventions. In fact, we read about PFAS somewhere. But do remember that these are called forever chemicals because they are non-biodegradable and they are found in these many day-to-day usage things. EU PFAS restriction came into force in 2025. US also has MCL set up for different PFAS or PFOS substances. E-waste management rules happened in 2022, which has EPR for producers, bulk consumers, and producer deposit refund system is also there. It was channelized through formal sectors. So essentially, e-waste management rules have come for fixing the producer responsibility on e-waste, and also there should be formalization of e-waste management. Urban mining targets are given. 1.07 crore tons of e-waste is generated in India. So more than 1 crore tons of e-waste is generated annually in India, which is third largest globally. So currently there is 22% formal recycling. We need to take it to 100% so that it feeds into the circular economy concept and as well as reduces our reliance on China as well as other countries for critical minerals, because most of this e-waste management uses a lot of critical minerals. If we can take it to maximum recyclable, so recycling, we are making our country more self-reliant and less dependent on global supply chains. So this becomes very important. Hence, the formalization part is extremely important along with producer responsibility. Now, coming on to climate science and IPCC AR6 and extreme events, we have IPCC AR6 report, which came out in 2021-2022, which in its report, IPCC actually gave code red for humanity as per UN Secretary General. So human influence is unequivocal in global warming, 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial already. And we have seen that in the previous slides that 150 gigatons of CO2 is only left as our budget, and annually we give about 37 to 38 gigatons of CO2. So in next 4 years, we are going to bypass our budget of 1.5 degrees Celsius of Paris Climate Agreement. So even if 0.5 degrees Celsius increases significantly worsens our extreme events, we are seeing that we have a super El Nino event in our country this year, which will be worsened due to the human effects of urban heat islands, rising sea levels. And sea level is rising by about 3.5 to 4 millimeter per year. And the rise is also accelerating. 1.5% versus 2 degrees Celsius, 1.5 degrees Celsius versus 2 degrees Celsius. What would happen? At 1.5 degrees Celsius, 70 to 90% coral reef loss would happen. At 2 degrees Celsius, 99% coral reef would or loss would happen. We would lose most of our coral reefs. Extreme heat events that occurred once in 50 years will occur every 5x or every 10 years or 5 years. And so 5x for 1.5 degrees Celsius, 14x for 2 degrees Celsius. So essentially every year or the other year, we'll have an extreme heat event. Arctic summer ice loss would be certain by 2050 under all scenarios. Even if we hit 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, Arctic ice is going to melt. And hence, there is a geopolitical game also between the countries which are surrounding that Arctic to have those sea lanes of communication open and extract maximum natural resources from this region, which is rich in fossil fuels. India's extreme event profile, heat waves of above 45 degrees Celsius are routine in Rajasthan, MP, Telangana. Wet bulb temperatures have increased. One of the PYQs was there. Physiological survival limit has reached. So basically, in wet bulb temperatures of above 35 degrees Celsius, if you're outside, you dehydrate very quickly. And within 6 to 8 hours, if you do not rehydrate in the similar proportion, there is severe fatal damage which can happen. Wayanad landslide happened in 2024, 250 plus deaths. In fact, in Uttar Pradesh, recently we had an extreme storm event which killed more than 100 plus people. Global leaders also showed their condolences towards it. All of this is being triggered by these extreme event profiles. So now we have more GLOF events, glacial lake outburst flow, like South Lonak Lake in Sikkim when I was posted there. Then we have killed so we lost our soldiers as well as a lot of civilians in that event, and now these GLOF events have become regular. We had the Chamoli GLOF event in Uttarakhand recently. So we see that wet bulb temperature, heat events are increasing, GLOF events are increasing, landslides and floods are increasing because of the certain climate change and increase in global temperatures which is happening. So there is some GLOF related warnings which is given by ISRO, high risk lakes. IMD also gives GLOF warnings. Coral bleaching events have happened. So fourth global mass bleaching event happened in April 2024. 77% of world's coral reefs were affected by it. What is bleaching? Well, corals are a symbiotic organism which has plant as well as zooxanthellae, which are animal, like not exactly animal, but you know that zooxanthellae help in nourishing the corals itself. In coral bleaching events, these zooxanthellae are expelled. Basically, they die off at 1 degree Celsius above maximum monthly temperature for 4+ weeks. So if let's say the coral can survive in a various specific temperature range of 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. If there is 1 degree Celsius temperature increase for a continuous period of 4+ weeks, the zooxanthellae on those corals die. And Indian reefs were also affected. Lakshadweep atoll was first hit. So what is an atoll? You should know this. Andaman reefs, Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Mannar. So all of these areas which had reefs were affected. Lakshadweep, Andaman, Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Mannar. Then Mission Mausam was given by Ministry of Earth Sciences in September 2024. 2,000 crores was allocated for it, expanding the Doppler radar network from 91 to 115 plus, wind profiles, radiometers, AI-based weather models are being adopted. It aims to extend the forecast accuracy from 10 days for extreme events. And there are complements of Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, NCMRWF, and INCOIS. So all of these organizations together under the ambit of Ministry of Earth Sciences are trying to better their sensor network as well as weather models for accurate prediction of extreme weather events. Mission Mausam is a part of it. Now, what is happening in green energy transition or hydrogen and renewable energy storage? National Green Hydrogen Mission was launched in 2023. It targets 5 metric tons of hydrogen per year, green hydrogen by 2030. Currently, we have less than 0.1 metric tons per year. Electrolyzer manufacturing target of 5 gigawatts per year is also there, and export potential of 100 billion tons by 2030. So basically, we are trying not only to build green hydrogen for ourselves, but also to exporting it by 2030 to a value of $100 billion. SITE, which is a systematic strategic invention for green hydrogen transition. It is a scheme by the central government. SITE is a scheme by central government for green hydrogen. It incentivizes for electrolyzers and green hydrogen production. So how is green hydrogen produced or mass produced? It is generally due through the electrolysis of water. So you should know the equation where H2O, when it is electrolyzed, it gives hydrogen and oxygen. So oxygen again can be used in the liquid form for various purposes, including medical purposes, and green hydrogen definitely can power our green future. In fact, recently we had a lot of green hydrogen buses running in Delhi, and this is increasing day by day in our country. The major challenge for green hydrogen is not its production. That science is already there, electrolysis process, but mostly it is because of the storage facilities. So how do we store such huge amounts of hydrogen without being like damaging its surroundings, and also without leaking or having porous materials. So it requires a lot of research in material sciences also, the storage part of green hydrogen. Color coding of hydrogen: green is through renewable energy electrolysis, blue is through natural gas and coal gasification, and then we have gray, which is natural gas, no CCS, which is dominant today. So basically, most of the green hydrogen, most of the hydrogen which is produced today is through CCS, which is called gray hydrogen. It is produced either from natural gas or some fossil fuels. Then there is also called pink hydrogen, which is from nuclear sources. Brown and black hydrogen is through coal gasification. It is the most polluting form of producing hydrogen. And we have also have a turquoise hydrogen, which is through methane pyrolysis. So you can produce hydrogen through different methods. Green hydrogen is the best method because if you are using renewable energy like solar energy to do the hydrolysis or electrolysis of water, then it is the best form of hydrogen which you can produce. Other forms, worst form is brown black, which is from coal gasification. It is the most polluting. We also have turquoise, which is methane pyrolysis. Pink is from nuclear, and gray is from natural gas. Blue is from natural gas plus CCS. Now, PM Kusum Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Uthan Mahabhiyan. PM Kusum is basically for what? Rooftop solar or solar. Three components are there. A is ground-mounted solar plants of 10,000 megawatts. B is standalone solar pumps of 17.5 lakh, and solarization of existing pumps. So in PM Kusum Yojana, we are trying to collaborate between two things. One, increasing farmers' income or doubling their income, and making them energy self-sufficient. How is it done? By three components. One, make massive solar plants up to 10,000 megawatts. Standalone solar pumps are given to these farmers, 17 to 18 lakh, and then solarization of existing 10 lakh pumps. ADB has given $500 million loan to Maharashtra for component C, which is solarization of existing pumps. So it not only saves energy, but it also makes farmers independent or self-reliant for energy needs and irrigation. PLI for solar photovoltaic modules, 24,000 crores have been allocated for it, which is, what is PLI? PLI scheme is for many different kinds of industries. So it is also for solar PV modules. You should know about PLI and which are the industries which are covering it. Like which are the industries which PLI is covering? What are the different advantages which PLI gives? It aims to create 10,000 megawatts of integrated solar manufacturing capacity in India. Domestic content requirement for PSU schemes. 40% of import duty has been levied on solar cells and 25% on modules from April 2022 to boost domestic manufacturing. So Indian government is tackling the problem from both ends. One, it is giving PLI, performance linked incentive for solar PV module manufacturing in India. So if you set up solar manufacturing plants of 10,000 megawatts, that is aimed, then you get a lot of incentives. And also tariffs have been levied on import of solar cells and modules to boost domestic manufacturing. You have battery energy storage, which is PLI for ACC advanced chemistry cell batteries, 18,100 crores. 50 gigawatt capacity of battery energy is projected to be raised through the scheme. Now you have solid state chemistry. RBI reported that EV penetration and 8.5% of total vehicles by 2025. So basically in India, EV penetration is increasing. People are buying more and more EV vehicles, which is good in terms of energy efficiency, energy reliance, and less reliance on fossil fuels. So basically, you can have power plants working on solar energy, nuclear, wind, or hydro, and using that energy to power your batteries of EV or even for powering your homes, which will lead to less reliance on fossil fuels and coal for our energy needs. That is the essential larger game. And through RBI report, we know that more electric vehicle penetration is happening. And charging infra target of 1 lakh stations by 2030. So these vehicle penetration will only happen when charging infra is as omnipresent as the petrol pumps like we have today. So that is targeted to 1 lakh stations by 2030. We also have the carbon credit trading scheme, CCTS of 2023, which is driven by MOEFCC, a notification. So BE administers compliance market for 9 obligated sectors: steel, cement, aluminium, etc. So CBAM tax by EU are also across the 8 different sectors which we had seen. And it is voluntary offset segment which is being created. It is distinct from BRSR. A BRSR is a disclosure which came in PYQs also. BRSR does not lead to trading, but carbon credit trading should happen. So basically, if you are more efficient in running your factories in steel, cement, aluminium, you are producing greenhouse gases, less polluting substances, then you can trade those credits with other entities. And this leads to two things. One, it incentivizes companies, factories to proceed to more sustainable practices, and also it monetizes whatever sustainable measures which they are taking. So these are the green energy transition and trading schemes for carbon credits, energy efficiency, administered compliances, which one should know about. Now coming on to okay, ecosystem and species. Okay, there are two topics left. One is the ecosystem, forest, mangroves, and marine. Forest Survey of India 2023 came out. Total reported forest and tree cover in India is 25.17% of India's geographical area. Forest cover alone is 21.76%. These are the specific figures. Also go through the report, the most recent report of 2025 or 2026, whenever it has come out. Very dense forest plus moderately dense and open forest. These are the three categories. Mangrove cover is about 5,000 square kilometers. It increased by 16 kilometers square from 2021. And 17 states are there with mangroves. So you should know about these coastal states. And if there are coastal states, then definitely they would have some part of mangroves. What are the forest types? Champion and Seth classification. There are tropical wet evergreen forest, which has greater than 200 centimeters of rainfall. Example, Western Ghats, coastal areas, and Northeast. Then there is tropical moist deciduous forest, where teak is a dominant tree, 100 to 200 centimeter. There is tropical dry deciduous forest of 60 to 100 centimeter rainfall. Teak and sal are the major species here. Tropical thorn forest, less than 60 centimeter rainfall, mostly in Rajasthan and Gujarat. And alpine and subalpine forest in Himalayas. So you should know about the different forest classifications by Champion and Seth. Tropical wet, moist deciduous, dry deciduous, thorn, alpine and subalpine. Where are they found? Which are the dominant tree species and which is the rainfall criteria under which they are classified? Then there is a MISTI scheme, Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Outcomes in 2023. MISTI becomes important because it's a 100-day program, which is also ongoing. It has restored 4,500 plus hectares of mangroves by 2025. States are Odisha, West Bengal, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, and Goa. MG Narega works can be taken under MISTI scheme for rejuvenating our mangroves. And CAMPA funds are also used here, which is compensatory afforestation management funds. It is also a UN decade for ecosystem restoration. So MISTI scheme is connected to UN decade of ecosystem restoration, uses the funds from CAMPA and labor from MG Narega to rejuvenate our shoreline habitats and mangroves. Mangrove ecosystems are called blue carbon stores. They sequester carbon dioxide at 5x more rate than tropical forests. So mangrove ecosystems are very important because not only do they do disaster management protection of coastal areas, but also they help in carbon sequestration at 5 times more rate than tropical forest. They protect coastline from cyclones, storm surges, nursery habitats for many fish. Bhitarkanika Groves in Odisha is the second largest part. It is also a Ramsar site. And Pichavaram in Tamil Nadu is world's second largest mangrove forest. Well, we can see somebody claims it, but just check. Sundarbans is the largest mangrove forest in the country. Bhitarkanika in Odisha is the second largest Ramsar site, which is also one of the mangrove forests. And you also find saltwater crocodiles in Bhitarkanika forest, which is one of the rare sites. Then Aravali Green Wall, 1400 kilometers from Gujarat to Delhi. So Aravali is actually flow from Gujarat to Rajasthan, Delhi and Haryana, NCR region. 1.15 million hectares of greening is happening. We are trying to create a green wall so as to stop land degradation and the desertification of these areas. 5-kilometer buffer belt. So basically you can imagine a line which is 1.15 million hectares long and 5 kilometers of buffer is built into it. It aims to halt the eastward movement of Thar Desert. It is inspired by Africa's Great Green Wall in the Sahel region, which is 8,000 kilometers long across 11 countries, basically to stop the expansion of Sahara Desert. Then there is something called Cold Triangle in Indo-Pacific, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Solomon Islands. One very important part of the global world map which you should focus upon is the Southeast Asian region and the East Asian region. You should go through different islands and countries which are present, where they are present, which are the seas, like you have Arafura Sea or Sunda Strait. Different kinds of states are there, different seas are there. You should know their names, where they're present from east to west and also top to bottom. UPSC has asked these questions, PYQs many times. And in fact, with all the Taiwan conflict in question and the geopolitics happening, this region always remains in news. So there is Coral Triangle in which these countries are present: Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, PNG, Timor-Leste, Solomon Islands. 76% of all coral species are present in this Coral Triangle, and 35% of world's coral reefs are present here. Indian reefs are also critically stressed. We saw that in the previous slide. And also, Coral Reef Task Force of India has been formed under MOFCC to protect our coral reefs in Gulf of Mannar, Khambat, Andaman and Nicobar, and Lakshadweep. Coming on to the species conservation, which are the flagship species and in-use species. The Great Indian Bustard, which is critically endangered, population is less than 150 in wild, mostly across Rajasthan and Gujarat. Supreme Court in 2021 ordered that underground power lines should be laid in Greater Indian Bustard habitat. Supreme Court also modified the order in 2023, allowed overhead line in some areas after expert committee recommendation. Desert National Park in Jaisalmer has the maximum number of wild Great Indian bustards. Gangetic River dolphin, which is again endangered. So it is a national aquatic animal of India. A Project Dolphin was launched in 2020. Vikramshila Gangetic Dolphin Sanctuary in Bihar is one of the only national parks or sanctuaries which is dedicated for Gangetic River dolphin. It is the only freshwater dolphin in India. In fact, some of the freshwater dolphins are found in this dolphin is there. There is also Irrawaddy dolphin, which flows in the Irrawaddy River in Myanmar. Read about these species. UPSC has asked about them in the PYQs. They use sonar for navigation. They're essentially blind, so they use their sonar signals for navigation and catching fish, etc. There are different kinds of threats which they see, which is bycatching, sand mining, pollution, and also different river being used for transport. These are the different threats to the Gangetic River dolphin population. We have already released turtle, which is a vulnerable species. Mass nesting, which is called Aribada as an event. It happens in Gahirmatha, Odisha, and also different beaches of Odisha. Rushikulya is a river on its mouth. Also, Aribada happens. They are in the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act. So one of the five turtle species in India. So there are five turtle species. Olive Ridley sea turtle is one of those five species which does its Aribada on the shores of Odisha. They are also in the protected areas of Bhitarkanika and Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary. So Bhitarkanika becomes very important in terms of it is a national park, Ramsar site, as well as elephant corridor. It has various important species like saltwater crocodile, olive ridley turtle, etc. So read about it. Dugong is also called sea cow or sea mammal. UPSC has asked about it in the PYQs. Only marine mammal that is purely herbivorous. It grazes on the seagrass. It is found in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Kutch, and Gulf of Mannar. Schedule 1 of WPA and CITES Appendix 1 it is included. Project Dugong was announced in 2013. Critically low population is there in India, less than 250 are left. Vultures in India, 9 species are present in India and 3 are critically endangered. Egyptian vulture, wild rumped vulture, and slender-billed are critically endangered. Gyps bengalensis, these are the fastest declining bird species because of some chemicals like diclofenac, which is anti-inflammatory for the cattle. So diclofenac is a anti-inflammatory drug which is used for the cattle, and it is fatal for vultures in India. It has caused mass vulture death. It was banned in 2006. Then there is another drug called meloxicam, which is a safe alternative to diclofenac. Jatayu Conservation Breeding Center has been established in Haryana to protect the vulture population in India. We also have red panda, which is endangered. Himalaya, Sikkim, Arunachal, Schedule 1. In Darjeeling, there is the largest red panda breeding center. It is also present in Darjeeling Zoo. Schedule 1 of WPA and CITES, Appendix 1 of Arboreal Red Panda Recovery Strategy. In fact, Single Leela National Park, you'd find some wild red pandas there. Snow Leopard Preservation Group also covers this habitat. Threats are habitat fragmentation, bamboo die-off, and red panda project. So basically, red panda has, in fact, panda in general has bamboo as its primary nutrition. So habitat fragmentation is always one of the major reasons of any species vulnerability. And then we also have a red panda project by WWF and Zoological Society of India. With this, we come to an end of environment revision of 360 plus high probability topics. I hope when you go through it, it will not only help you in your static revision, but also connect the different current affairs in news, will help you revise the concepts, get your conceptual clarity, and will give you a feeling of fullness. You can connect here, like and share, subscribe this video. See you in another session with different subjects. Till then, keep revising, keep reading with full energy, and keep your mind open. Okay, see you in the next session.